Welcome to Deskside with. Our guest today is Ken Makovsky, CEO of Makovsky and Company. Ken, how are you doing?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Great, thank you. Welcome. You outlined 7 reasons why the golden age of PR is within reach recently at a keynote for the Canadian Public Relations Society. Do you want to recap those reasons?
Absolutely. Let me just mention that there are 3 major events that I've seen in the history of man. One was the development of writing, which affected communications, the development of the printing press, which had a massive effect on communications, and the current revolution, which I call the internet revolution, which we're going through now, which overall, in my opinion, makes the golden age of public relations just within reach. Now, the specific reasons that I gave in this talk in Vancouver were, number one, the need for message warriors. And what I mean by that is message warriors really are the foot soldiers in the campaign to capture the hearts and minds of our target audiences. And this is third-party endorsement in its absolute finest sense. It's what PR executives have been called on for years. But I call them message warriors because I indeed say they have taken on a greater importance in today's internet environment than ever before. Secondly is truthiness and the decline of trust. Truthiness is also a phenomenon of the internet age. What I mean by that is on the internet, sometimes things are reported so frequently that they become truth, when in reality, somebody coined the phrase truthiness because the truth is usually not really the truth. It is truthiness because of common acceptance of a fact or an opinion that people suddenly ascribe to truth. Thirdly was the second coming of television. According to Jeff Cole, who was director of the Center for Digital Future at USC, television will again become the constant companion of ours in leisure hours, only this time it's moving from the room to the pocket. And as the number of hours spent watching TV increases from about 34 hours weekly to an estimated 50, the demand for content will skyrocket, and this will be an opportunity for public relations. Fourth was breathtaking tech breakthroughs. All I really meant by that was indicators are suggesting that there's another big wave of technology that is going to give rise to new business. We all know what that did for the public relations business in the late 90s during the dot-com wave, and particularly it's happening this time in the area of consumer electronics, B2B technology, the green revolution, really everything that's mobile. But in addition to that, I believe that technology geeks will increasingly become an important part of our business, just as graphic designers are today and research specialists are, as we get deeper and deeper into doing website and online work. Next is what I call one world, multiple opportunities. Until recently, unless you were in a major hub such as Tokyo or New York or London, an agency's clients were usually confined to a city or region in which the firm operated. Today, we are literally living what was called the global village, which was first described by Marshall McLuhan in the mid-'60s, and it's a reality today. So it is possible for anyone to seek a PR firm anywhere in the world. You're global just by being on the internet. Number 6 was the cost of getting PR wrong is greater than ever before.
Absolutely.
As we know, today what's inside is outside. As a result of really the rise of social media, everything a company, its competitors, its customers, partners, employees, shareholders, whatever they say, everything that has anything to do with a company is a wide open book. Look, this is a tremendous challenge to manage. And if not done carefully, the dam is going to break, and the cost is steep. So it's almost like insurance to hire a public relations firm. Seventh is what I call growth in stature. PR industry has traditionally been the David to the ad industry's Goliath, at least in terms of revenues. But indications are that the growth in spending on public relations nowadays is considerably outstripping the growth in advertising. And so public relations is beginning to close the budget gap. And if a company must limit its choice to only one option in the marketing toolkit, I believe the best choice is public relations because we do it all. We're like many factories in the framework of the great global conversation enabled by the internet, and I believe we do it better than anyone else. So those really are the 7 points that I made in my recent talk at before the Canadian Public Relations Society meeting in Vancouver.
Great. Thank you for that overview. Very thorough. Thank you for walking through it point by point. You began to address my next question already, which is what do those predictions mean for our integrated strategic communications partners like marketers, like advertising, investor relations, social media shop onlys, digital shops? I think you began to answer that. It's sort of the rise of PR. Does that mean the downfall of the other practices? What's the takeaway for other folks in other disciplines?
Well, here's how I look at it. I think that integrating the marketing tools and skills into one seamless program ultimately saves the client money, and I also think it maximizes the impact on a client's target audiences. And this has been true at least for the last 30 years, in my opinion. In the 1980s, the ad agency really often choreographed the entire marketing picture. It really dominated because it really had the largest budget. But the rise of social media, in my opinion, has turned that on its head. Social media is about content and conversation. Yep. It's this particular area happens to be our métier. It's one of the areas that public relations has excelled in for years. The whole point of conversation and dialogue and listening. Public relations listens to what the parties are saying and then ultimately finds common ground. So increasingly, as I see it, PR should be really at the center of the marketing team, really orchestrating and uniting the integrated program.
Okay, good overview. My next question would have been, what's your advice for PR firms and PR professionals for working more closely with their integrated partners? So you just said work more closely with. How? What are the strategies that you applied there at Makovsky and Company for doing that?
Yeah, I would start out by saying something. I was having a conversation with Paul Holmes, who is editor of the Holmes Report.
Yep.
And he said something that made a major impact on me, and I thought he really hit the nail on the head. He said, the only thing that can limit our success is budget and balls. And it sounds a little funny, but I think that public relations professionals tend to be limber, agile, and as I said before, mini factories, if you will. We can do it all. But I also think our mission in life really is to be not only persuasive, but consensus builders, to make sure that everybody is coming to a common conclusion, and persuasion is the ultimate achievement. But we don't hit people over the head with the big, bold ad that says, this is the way we do things. We work the room, and sometimes this methodical approach can sometimes veer a little bit into risk aversion. Mm-hmm. So I think public relations people, to go back to the point that Paul made about having adequate budget and balls, have to get used to taking the leadership. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, it does. And thanks to you and to Paul for that headline. That'll be a great little headline for this. All right, I know on your blog you like to highlight and call out books I think that you've been reading. What are you reading these days, and what books would you recommend others in PR read?
Well, one of the books, it's not something I'm reading right at this minute, but it's a book from a business and PR standpoint that I think is particularly important. It was a book called Execution, The Discipline of Getting Things Done. Well, I think that a lot of people sometimes, and particularly leaders in our business, tend to feel that execution is just tactical. But it has always been my belief that, yes, strategy is very, very critical, and it always has to come first. But I think that execution is not just about tactics. It's about building it into the company's strategy and culture. Because everything that is achieved has to be executed. And the talent has got to be there to make sure that that execution occurs. So I think sometimes people downplay the importance of project management and think that when they get to the upper levels of public relations that they'll only have to be involved in strategy. So I would take that tip from the execution book about the fact that execution is not just about tactics, it's about building it into the strategy and culture of the firm.
Great. Just wanted a little peek into your management mind there, so thank you. Let's wrap it up with any last tips, a tip or two that we haven't touched upon that you would like to share with other agency owners or other public relations practitioners watching this.
I'm not sure that this is a particularly esoteric tip, and it's one that everybody hasn't thought about before, but I think one of my conclusions is integrity. Be truthful. Be truthful with your clients. Be truthful with your staff. I feel that integrity goes a long way, and that particularly in today's transparent society where that is such a fundamental for all of our clients, and often something very hard to do. If you look at the news, and there are always crises in the news, and there's some today, where if you just call it like it really was, it saves an enormous amount of time. We're a forgiving society, and there's no question that the truth sells. And that would be perhaps not an esoteric tip, but something that I believe very deeply in.
Great. I wonder if you're referencing, and you might not be able to say, I'm not sure of your client list, the whole Weinergate saga this week?
I think I've given you the answer. I think based on what I've read, don't know the man, so I'm going purely, and I don't know the people involved, but based on what I've read about it, you don't go on the fence on something like that. Either the photo is of Anthony Weiner or it's not, and he certainly should know it. I mean, the man has got to know his own physique. So I don't completely understand his hedging on this one, and it is creating credibility issues. So I would have just been honest and truthful. The origin of that photograph would have been clear. For example, if it really isn't who he is, then obviously there's a good chance that he doesn't know where it came from. And if it was him and somehow he was involved in the generation of this, which sounds like a long shot, but who knows? I mean, the best thing to do is to put the truth on the table.
Well, he needed a consultant like you or someone at Makovsky and Company who practiced the principles of integrity. So thank you for rolling with me on that last one. We appreciate it. Once again, Deskside with Ken Makovsky, CEO of Makovsky and Company. Have a wonderful evening, Ken.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.